Hello and welcome to the Futro Hidden Movie Gems podcast. I'm your host, Ty Spiker Christensen. I got the need for speed. Woo! Yeah! We've got Jordan Christensen on the podcast.
Danger zone!
And we've got Cameron Mickle on the pod.
Where am I? Earth?
And we've got Tyler Huxford on the podcast.
Talk to me, Goose.
Talk to me, Goose. Speak to me. Speak to me.
You know what I was thinking of was Cobra Kai when he's watching that show and the guy's like, Chappie! And he's in the jet and he explodes.
Yeah.
Was that Crease's flashback or which one are you talking about?
No, so he's watching television. It's kind of like the first or second episode.
Oh, that's right. Where William Zabka's watching the TV. Yeah, the reaction in the show they're watching. Yeah. Good stuff, dude. Vague reference, but I get it. It took me a second to get there, but we're here. We're talking about Top Gun.
Okay, Ty, I just need to
Maverick.
ask, were there people dressed up at your movie theater? There was people dressed up in...
Well,
saw
you mean,
this together,
you mean
Jordan.
actual folks who represent our armed services, or
Yeah, there's people dressed up in jet suits, and like some people had helmets on, and like a
I
ton of
think
people.
Jordan's meaning people that clearly weren't pilots.
Okay. No, because there are obviously a
So-
lot of. This is like a darling for the like Air Force military community, and so like people actually show up in their like ABUs or ACUs, depending if they're Army or Air Force. So I thought that's what you meant for a second, and that kind of cracked me up. But
I mean, they might have been. I don't really know the difference between like an official.
no, the helmets, they wouldn't come to the theater in helmets.
Oh.
Let me tell you, Ty, I definitely looked at the size and shapes of some of these cretins, and I was like, yeah, they were.
Those
never
don't
Air Force,
represent our
not
Navy.
Air Force.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I forgot you both go by Ty. I was actually talking to my brother, but then I'm like, oh yeah, you did go to the theater with me. Duh.
I was there.
Yeah.
That's our story, dude. So let's get into it. Cameron, why don't you share with us what was it like going to see this movie? And
Yeah.
what was your experience around that?
And how was it seeing Ty there? Ty came all the way down from Wisconsin, Cameron, just so he could see it with you.
Yeah, my family surprised me and we watched it together. It was
Took a popcorn shower together. It was great.
Yeah, it was really fun. We went and saw. My initial reaction was I wasn't super stoked. I obviously wasn't like expecting a whole lot because I enjoyed the first one, but it's kind of just one of those movies where like the first Transformers where I thought it was great, but like I was worried about a sequel and just kind of like copy and paste. But I was honestly very impressed, and I even enjoyed it more than the second or the first one.
Oh, shots fired or missiles away. I don't know.
Oh, I
What
totally
am
thought
trying
the
to
second
say?
one was way better. Did you
Yeah,
think
I
the
was going
first
to
was
say,
better?
shots fired, shots received. I agree with that 100%.
Am I the odd one out? I mean, you don't... Yeah, no, I definitely like this one better, but maybe it's recency bias. I watched the old one fairly recently. Both me and my wife liked it, and my wife surprised me on how much she liked it. I was like, I feel like there's a little bit of a story, but this one definitely has a more clear-cut story, in my opinion. Like, get the job done, prove that it can be done, and then execution. Doesn't go exactly according to plan. I mean, like, it's literally a hero's journey, and it's
And they even
literally
spent less time. Dad was Dad was like mad that he's like, they spent too much time with the woman. I'm like, they spent way less time in the second one with the woman than they did in the first one.
Agreed.
I think, yeah, I don't know what Dad's issue with Sarah Connolly or Jennifer Connelly is, or the original. I don't remember what her name was. Who was it?
No, this
The
new
first
girl's
one was
so much
ugly.
better than the original.
She's fine. What is she, 60? Holy
Yeah.
crap.
Dude, she ages
looked
like
out of
fine wine.
She looked out of she's out of Tom Cruise league.
Oh,
Yeah.
have you seen Charlie from the original movie today? Let's just say
Charlie.
Like Charlie is the name of the girl from the first movie. She obviously wasn't invited back. Let's just say there's an obvious let's just say that there's an obvious reason she wasn't invited back, or rather that she put on several obvious reasons since then.
Gosh.
So it's you should honestly look up her photo.
You could have had a really beautiful thing, with
Tom Cruise and the
Jenna
fat chick?
Fisher, or not Jenna Fisher. What's her name? Carrie Fisher from not Lord of the. Gosh dang, Star Wars.
Goodness.
Hey, what is a picture? Who is that?
That's the girl. That's what she looks like now,
Yeah.
Ty.
That is
Wait, the one on the left? Or
The one on the
right?
left is from the first
No,
Tom
they're the
Cruise
same
movie.
woman. It's just like what she. That's
It's
what she
what
looks
she
like.
looks like
now,
what she looks
Ty.
like now.
That's what
Are
she
you
looks like
freaking
today.
Oh
dumb?
my
No, but
God.
isn't
Am I
that
getting pranked?
Isn't that
That's
amazing
so
though?
sad.
Like that just testifies to Tom Cruise's immortality and the fact that he looks so good for being that age. That woman, I mean, honestly doesn't even look that bad. She just looks like she's 55 or 60, and how old Tom Cruise is.
He
You
doesn't
know,
look like
He
a
just doesn't
30-year-old
look it.
model like Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Who's looked
Oh
that
my
way
goodness,
for the
he's
past 50
immortal.
years.
So I know Jennifer Connelly, I'm looking at her thing, was born in 1970. So she's pushing 50, 52.
Yeah, 52.
It's not bad. I know that Tom Cruise, he's over 60 now, right?
Is he that
He's
old?
like I know Tom Cruise, he was in late 50s when they did the Fallout movie. So I know he must be,
59.
I'll look at 59.
That's bonkers.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
boy.
older than I thought. I would have guessed like, I don't know, 55. 59-year-olds just aren't supposed to look that good.
But
That's
July
criminal.
3rd, his birthday in 3 days. His birthday's in 3 days from the recording. He'll turn 60. Everybody, it's a solemn occasion where all of our best action stars are all pushing 55 and older.
Wow.
Keanu Reeves. You got
Tyler, with
Tom
your
Cruise.
workout,
Liam
I
Neeson.
Clint
expect
Eastwood's
you to look like that
94.
at that age.
and he's still starring in his own films
Well,
as an action star.
the reality
That is
is,
so
if he's 59 today, that means when he was filming this movie, he was probably 55 because it took forever to be released.
It did, yes. But they still have a new Mission Impossible movie coming out. I saw the
Did this not
commercial
remind you of the
and
Mission
part
Impossible
one.
movie?
in part one.
So he's going to
Yeah.
come back when he's like 60 plus.
Jeez.
Movie theaters aren't even going to give any signs of dying anymore. We're not going to see any signs of aging. They're going to look great like they're in their 30s, and then they're just going to keel over and simply
They just
because they
need
were
their
74
voice
the whole time.
and green screen it on some younger actor's bod. That's all they need, dude. In fact, this will become a conspiracy. You know how they think Elvis and people like Tupac, they're not actually dead? This is going to be real. They're going to live immortal. Tom Cruise is going to die, but they're going to digitally upload him and just keep putting him into Mission Impossible movies and Maverick until Kingdom Come. And it's just going to be like, wait, this doesn't make sense. This is like 1,000 years later, we're still getting a Tom Cruise movie. And it's like, but man, did he look good.
Yep.
They just keep imposing his body on a 14-year-old boy or whatever. I don't know why the peak of physicality would be a 14-year-old boy.
Definitely
but
not.
Who am I to judge? Yeah, maybe I was thinking of a 25-year-old. So, guys, let's get into this movie, this Tom Cruise movie. It's a Tom Cruise movie first, and then it's some pilots movie after. Guys, Top Gun. This movie came out. It's in theaters now. Go see it. It's a perfect dad movie. You can take your dads to go see this movie. It stars Tom Cruise, Jennifer Connelly, Miles Teller, my boy, Val Kilmer. It's got a few others. Bashir Salahuddin, John Hamm, Charles Parnell, Monica Barbaro, Louis Pullman, Jay Ellis, Danny Glenn Powell, and a few others. So, guys, what was it like watching it for the first time, rewatching it for the movie? Tyler, let's go with you.
So this was an incredible movie. Like, honestly, you feel like you were riding an F-18. You got done like riding an F-18 for 2 hours. And I'm not just talking about like the in-shot, like made you feel like you were in a plane. I'm just saying it was a super exciting movie all throughout. And it was a very highly anticipated movie for me. I, of course, had this date marked in my calendar clear back when it was supposed to be released in 2019. And then in 2020, and then later on in 2020, and here we are finally getting to watch this movie in 2022 today. And it's just really refreshing to watch a movie like this. This, in my opinion, is the very best sequel to a classic I have ever seen. And I'm not talking like sequels. Sequels is like Rambo 1, 2, 3. You know, those all came out relatively within the same era, right? I'm talking sequels to a classic. That's like what Creed is to Rocky. It's like what, Incredibles 2 is to Incredibles, or like Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is to Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is the best sequel to a
great
classic
example of
I've
a
ever
well
seen.
done.
and I agree with whoever said it here. In my opinion, like Top Gun is a classic, certainly, but I much more enjoyed this film. It's a lot more fun to watch.
The editing, storytelling, yeah, it's all there. It's a roller coaster ride, like you said. You're right along in the jet with them. It never lets up. The movie just keeps building and building, and it just moves right along. Even though it's like a 2 hour and 11-minute movie, so I mean it's not a tight 90 minutes, but it still feels like it. Like I remember after it ended, I'm like, oh, it's over. Wow. Like, sure you want to do another flyby, Tom Cruise?
Which the last movie I saw in theaters was a 3-hour Batman movie, which I kept telling Jordan, like, there were several
Mine
points in the
too,
movie
yeah.
where I was just kind of hoping the movie
multiverse.
would end, and then it, like,
Yes.
I feel, so it was refreshing to get, like, a 2-hour action-packed, let's put it all in a reasonable time frame and make it feel like a 15-minute airplane ride. So it was great.
Yeah, not have 9
great.
fake endings.
9 fake endings. Jordan, how about you, man? What was it like watching it in the movie theater?
Well, it almost felt like going to like a Comic-Con version, like a superhero version. How do you say that? Am I saying that right? Like a jet movie.
Comic-Con for the Air Force.
Yes, thank you. Because everybody was like dressed up, and we had people like had shaved the sides of their hair, so they had mullets, and people had mustaches, and people were coming in, and it felt like we were at Comic-Con, and these people in these costumes, and maybe they were legit, I wouldn't know the difference, but it was such an experience. And then I had no desire to see this because I'm not a fan of the original. Like I'd seen it with my dad, and he loves it, but he was really excited, so we went with him, and it just so happened that Ty was in town, and so we all came to see it, and so it was like such a perfect joint experience. So, I mean, it was my favorite experience in the theaters this year. It's not my favorite movie, but it was my favorite experience because we were at the IMAX.
What's your favorite movie?
Well, of this year, probably The Northman was my favorite movie.
I did like Northman. I don't know if I liked it more than this though, but that's recency
No,
bias.
but this
again.
is
I need
my
to see
favorite
Northman
like
again.
experience. Holy crap. Was it like I felt like I was in, like Ty, you said it multiple times, inside the jet. Like the speakers were so loud and that screen was so freaking big.
Anytime they cut the camera back behind the jet thruster, just the rockets,
Did you guys see it in IMAX?
just freaking shook
Yeah.
me. Yes.
Oh wow.
The only proper way to see this movie.
Okay.
If you haven't seen it in IMAX, you actually haven't seen the movie yet. So I encourage everybody to get back into the theater and
Oh,
watch
boy.
it.
I
Absolutely
could
incredible.
probably do that again for this movie. I could actually probably watch this twice, maybe.
Well, I
For
do
sure.
agree that you need to see it in theaters. I don't know if it's like it has to be IMAX, but
I need to talk to the folks here in Madison, Wisconsin, because their theaters are too quiet. Either I'm getting old and senile in my age, and I can't make out what people are saying on screen. That's like speakers that are like 10 feet away from me. But like I went to the IMAX. Now, Jordan and Cameron, you might have caught this. When we were in the theater, it started pretty quiet. The trailers came on. Everything was pretty quiet. I could still hear people snacking on their snack. And then there's a scene where Tom Cruise was riding on his bike, and then someone was like, "Turn it up!" And then the speakers just went, like it freaking jacked up. And as soon as the Kenny Loggins started to play, there was very clearly someone in the back room or
Told
running the
somebody to
projector,
turn it up, yeah.
turn up the volume. They're like, "We can't hear this movie. This needs to be much louder." And they sure enough turned it up, which was really funny.
20
Like, it was
notches.
noticeable because the movie started. It's like, Mach 10. Can I keep going just a little bit further? Someone in the control room had their own Tom Cruise scene. Discovery of turning up the volume. So that was fun to see them turn it up to an appropriate volume level. Very, very loud in this movie theater. So anyway, yes, I surprised Cameron went to the movie theater, and all I could think of, there's a scene where Jennifer Connelly leaves the door open behind her. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And I was just like, I am so relieved I'm not sitting next to my father
How kind of
in
you
the
guys
theater
give
watching
me,
this
give me
scene.
that opportunity.
I know, but to the movie's credit, it was quite tastefully done, if I do say so myself. So.
And I love too when we were leaving the theater, there was like this guy blasting Highway to the Danger Zone, like in his car with the windows rolled down. It's such a perfect experience. I don't think it gets
Kenny
better than that.
Loggins' song, is I don't think there's too many movies that perfectly encapsulate like the feeling, and that song does. Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone it's perfect for the movie. Great score. So let's get into two of our favorite things. Tyler, hit us off. What are your two favorite things from this movie?
I like that it's a reciprocal, a mirror, I'm not sure the right word, of the original, meaning like same iconic beginning with like the bells chiming at the beginning and Paramount, and then like the takeoff on the on the cruiser with to Danger Zone, and then all the way to the mission at the end, which is where the Iceman Maverick character bond, just like the Rooster Hangman character bond. So I thought it was really cool how this movie was kind of essentially the same plot packed into this movie as the last. And I really liked
With A New
that.
Hope thrown in there for good measure,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and it was a lot like New Hope.
flying down the trenches, then you got to shoot the missile through the little
Yes,
thing, and then,
I totally
boom!
I had not made that
Mission
connection.
Hope.
That's
Yeah.
true. No, I was just thinking, this is a lot like the last movie. And I would say the second thing I liked about this movie, the second thing I liked about the movie the most is it was I love the training sequence where he's training the characters to the Who the Who song that plays, and like he tears through like the two students just as like the scream comes in that used to play for that CSI show way back in the day. That's probably still going, actually. Like that was a lot of fun, just watching these like super like overly confident hot shots, best pilots in the Navy coming in thinking they're the best, wondering who's going to teach us, and then this guy comes in doing, Maverick comes in doing stunts and techniques they have never seen before, and giving them a nice slice of humble pie while the Who plays. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Also, the instructor that they had thrown out at the bar the night before, which I thought was a great, funny moment where they're like, "Oh, jeez!" Like, that, of course, that's our instructor.
Just like in the first movie,
yeah, the girl he flirts
Goose,
with.
And Goose and Maverick hit on the girl, and they don't know that that's going to be their professor the next day. I'm telling you, it was the same movie sort of remade, and I like that. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, and I would say I think you're on something there. Like, it is a remake. And yet, what I really like about this, years later, is that they didn't have to take a steaming pile of shiz all over the original. They could just enhance it by taking the dramatic elements of the first movie.
Or rely so heavily on the original. Like the new Matrix movie, it was like, remember?
You want to watch the movie inside the movie?
Yeah, because, again, the movie is about jet fighter pilots. So it's like, if you did a movie without the jet fighter pilots, you'd be like, what? Like,
and it's okay to remember things. Like, this show, a lot of times it's like, okay, I can learn from the past. Like, there's a difference between taking the past.
Or even carry the consequences from previous movies.
Yes.
I like that. Like, they did that very well here, where it's Rooster's son, Goose, who's the emotional
son,
crux.
Rooster.
Excuse me, Goose's son, Rooster. Thank you. I'm getting my
heads mixed up.
Heads mixed up here. Which came first, the rooster or the hen?
The rooster or the goose?
Rooster. I'm trying my dad's
the chicken or the goose.
Fire! Chicken or the goose. So it was great that emotional weight carried from the previous movie that he was obviously still torn up about, and then it carried on to his son. I honestly thought when I saw the trailer originally, I only watched it once, I was thinking that Miles Teller was going to play Tom Cruise's son.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got something to prove against my dad, who's the best pilot. And I tell you, I was not excited to see this movie thinking that was the plot. This worked out much better. But just a weird nitpick before we get into Cameron's favorite two and Jordan's favorite two is you don't necessarily need to have the same facial hair as your father did to know that you're his son. Like, we all understood.
The mustache!
You can see a picture. That mustache looked really bad on Miles Teller. I'm just going to say. Miles Teller's a great, handsome-looking actor. He did not need to have that same outdated mustache.
I thought he pulled it
as
off.
his father did. You could say he pulled it off. I'm just saying he's a handsome fella. He doesn't need the mustache.
Why do you think he's handsome? Because of his
I thought that at
shirtless
first,
abs?
but then I was digging
Cameron,
it
you
later.
should start shaving your head so I know you're Byron's son, you know? That's my point.
I was
No, dude,
digging
the
it
same
later
way.
by the end of the film. At first, I was like, shave that.
Doesn't look good.
But
You just
I
start
liked
respecting the stash.
Yeah.
It's
That's
also
so
like
funny.
it looks like the
Anyway.
military has BYU rules because everyone, like, the only facial hair anyone has
I don't even
is a
think
mustache.
mustaches are allowed. I don't think mustaches are allowed in military school. Like, I went to a military school before this, which is part of the reason this movie's cool for me, because I went to a prep academy where you've got the Naval Academy preps, the Air Force Academy preps, the Army, West Point, Coast Guard, and Merchant Marine. So, like, I think of a lot of really good times when I watch a movie like this, and I think of like walking to class and my ACUs, which I thought was super cool, and like all the cool uniforms. And the Navy definitely has the best uniforms. Like, I love the white suit that he wears, the Class C's. Oh, it's pretty sweet. But I don't think that there's any mustaches. I don't think anybody's rocking any mustaches in the Navy actually. So
Yeah.
But
I believe that.
like I've seen some guys with beards out when they're deployed. Are they okay to do that then?
they can do that then. But,
Oh.
If you're off base, yeah.
Or I didn't know if it was like a ranking thing. It's like at a certain point. you
Navy
could-
SEALs are known for growing these like murder beards. Like, that's like you and I, Jordan. We could pass for Navy SEAls today. I see on the podcast.
Oh, interesting.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, Cameron, what are your two favorite things from this film?
I think, well, my first favorite thing is I just appreciated how all of the motives I felt like of all the characters was like actually like made sense. Because especially in movies like this, sometimes they're just like, oh, I just want to do this, like to be the best or whatever, and things like that. You were just like, I feel no emotion.
Which was Hangman.
Yeah.
Sucking down on that toothpick. You just wanted to punch him in his pretty little face.
Yeah, see, because you're just like, okay, well, but see, even him, it's like you saw and you realize that his like overall motives, he wants to serve his country and he wants to do what's best for like at the end of the day, like he wants to do what's best
And he wants to go
keep
fast.
everyone safe. No, and then
It's got to be faster.
and I just really appreciated that, and I just felt like, and same thing with Tom Cruise, like, because a lot of times too they try to like use these things where it's like, oh, Tom Cruise has this desire to teach them. Like, I like how the only reason he taught them was because of it was orders, and the only reason they allowed him back was because of orders. Like, they kind of did a lot of those that could be potential plot holes. They kind of covered it up with like, oh, this is orders from Iceman, and then they give it like reason because Iceman's like, oh, I know you can teach these kids. And I don't know, there's just a lot of things that I was like, oh, I really liked how everything played out, that didn't feel like anything was forced, where a lot of times when people go on journeys or do certain things, the motives I feel like are just so the plot can continue. And then my second favorite thing is I was honestly really impressed with just the overall action, just because I mean I enjoy fighter pilot movies, but like I don't love them, and not like, wow, that was so impressive.
Real quick, how many fighter pilot movies are there?
Well, I mean, just any action sequence, any like action sequence with planes, like what's it called, Dunkirk, like they do it really well. But like a lot of times you'll just like be watching it and you're like, okay, but they don't really show kind of the drama of it, and sometimes also doesn't feel like people could actually die. And so that's what I like, is they showed that like there's actual real stakes in this. And kind of like you said, that there's
maybe James Franco's Flyboy, maybe,
or Aviator.
It's like all. No, I'm pulling out all the movies of the bottom of the bucket. Maybe Valiant, DreamWorks picture. After Disney and DreamWorks separated, there was a movie about homing pigeons that carried messages during World War II. Terrible film. You should check it out. I'm just making more of your case in point, dude.
Well, going right off of Cameron's to mine, you said the flying, so that's totally my favorite thing. Like, Tom Cruise is the one actor like keeping practical effects alive. Like, he's not on a green screen. He actually is in those jets flying around, and it's so.
But is he piloting those planes, Jordan?
And the reason, Tom Cruise, I believe,
pilot license.
Yeah,
and he went to pilot school for this, like to learn how to move around in the plane to make it look like he's actually flying.
See, that's what makes it so sick.
Yeah,
but it's like you're not going to entrust
like
an
David
actor
Fincher and
like
stuff.
with a multi-million-dollar.
Yeah, but they are sitting. It's a two-seater, and they're sitting in the back, and they do have like cameras inside those things. Oh my gosh, it looks so visually cool because you like literally feel like you're in those things because it's all real. And Cameron, you mentioned Dunkirk. Dunkirk also, Christopher Nolan put them in real planes and attached the camera to those planes. So that's why those are so good.
Jordan, have you seen the commercial where there's like an advertisement for that movie right now, and like the cinematographer is talking about filming inside the plane, and when they talked about fitting cameras inside the plane, you know, these tight cockpits, like the guys, the naval aviators were like, oh yeah, we put GoPros in these things all the time, but then they saw our cameras and they realized, oh, these aren't GoPros, and they show up these like full size cameras that like obviously, I mean, it was a heck of a lot of work to fit those things in there, because those cockpits are tight. At the Air Force Academy, I think the height is 6'2". If you're over 6'2", you can't be a pilot. So like none of the basketball players could be pilots. And
wow.
So like it's really tight spaces in those really tight quarters in those cockpits.
Well, Tom Cruise definitely made that
6'4" with his head
Yeah,
down.
Tom Cruise doesn't have
Tom
any problem
Cruise-
fitting in a cockpit.
In fact, they got him a booster seat so he couldn't get the requirement necessary, but didn't fall above it. That's a relief. There was one scene where Miles Teller gets in his face and he's like clearly like almost a head taller than he was.
I noticed
was
that
like, oh,
scene.
they didn't stage that right. I bet Tom Cruise was like, who's the one that staged this scene? He's fetching fire. I have to be at eye level with my co-stars. It's good stuff.
And I mean, I've already mentioned Cobra Kai, but it's so funny. I feel like this and Cobra Kai were two sequels to the series that I like never expected to be this good, like to be
Right.
The 80s
Something you never wanted. Something you never wanted, but then we're so pleased to have.
Yeah, we didn't ask for, but didn't know we needed, and it's something we need. We need the 80s to come back and save this world.
Oh, guys.
Because all things 80s are just wonderful.
I'm
innocent.
so impressed with this movie. I'm convinced if it would have come out in 2020 like it was supposed to, it would have cured the pandemic. We would have had a 4-month pandemic. Like this would have inspired the world to get over this whole
We
thing.
can fight this.
Like,
Tom Cruise would have won president.
but-
He would have become president.
Yeah, no, but Jordan, that's a great point, because I have found that this type of movie is one of my favorites, like sequels to classics, like a remake that touches on the nostalgia of a movie made like at least a decade prior. Like I said, the Creed movies I'm very impressed with, Cobra Kai I'm impressed with, this I'm impressed with. About the only one that never hit home for me was Indiana Jones, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Like that's the one, because Indiana Jones is a big deal to me. If they would have made a great sequel to a classic, I would have respected it, but it just wasn't.
Don't worry,
Star
Harrison
Wars.
Ford's pushing like 80 now, and he's going to be the star of the next Indiana Jones that they're going to reboot years later. So don't worry, sit tight. Maybe this one will have a little bit more reverence and respect for our,
Is Shia
for our
LaBeouf
heroes.
going to be in it?
I doubt it.
Another movie,
I
but
doubt it.
oh well.
Which I don't think it was the worst part of the movie. Everyone has issues with like staging and action and all that stuff, but I don't get the hate toward Shia.
Yeah, no issues
So-
with Shia LaBeouf here. I just realized that he's gone through a lot since then. I mean, honestly, like that's speaking of sequels to a classic.
Are you referring to the paper bag on his head that said "I'm not famous anymore"?
Maybe.
Literally having a meltdown for all the public to watch. Yeah, who knows what's going on
Peanut
with that
Butter
guy? I like
Falcon
Peanut Butter
cured him.
Falcon. It's a good movie. Yeah. And what was the other one where he played his father and Honey Boy? That was a good one. Sad, but it was a good movie too.
There's one thing that I do want to touch on. Like one of my favorite moments of the film is the scene where he meets face to face with Iceman. Like Iceman, he's been texting the whole time, but I think that moment, like you see pictures of Iceman, and they kind of refer to Iceman. He's obviously like the admiral or something like that, and something very high up there. But then the scene where he actually gets to him face to face, and you see that he's not quite doing well, and he types his dialogue on the screen, even pointing back to a few of the dialogue pieces that he said to kind of repeat himself, and then finally stands up and actually tries to speak. And I didn't realize this, but that actor, and I can't remember
Throat
his name.
cancer.
You guys know.
Val Kilmer.
Actually has throat cancer. I had no idea. And then he's using his actual voice to say what he has to say. And then once again, touching back on the first movie, like final words is just tell me one thing. Who's the best pilot? And it's just as they embrace, and it's just that was a really touching moment. And I think that was. I think that was.
This is
really
a really
well
good
done.
moment.
Yeah.
Let's not ruin it.
Yep.
Yeah. I as I understood it, was it his son that did voiceovers for Val Kilmer? Because he tried to speak, and I think he got his son to dub some voiceovers.
I think his son might have done that, because I've watched a documentary about him, and I think he has to use one of those voice things to speak.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true. I was wondering
'Cause
that
it- So
maybe he had
because
his
I
son.
saw
I
something
listened to it, and it
today.
sounded different than the documentary.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe he had his son. I heard a rumor. I don't know if Byron actually found out this fact, but he told me, he's like, they got his son, Val Kilmer's son, actually did the voice for his father.
Well, he did
And
it
they
in
dubbed him.
the documentary, and he sounds just like him, Ty. So I don't know.
Right.
I just imagine
Well, they
that's...
didn't want like a fresh, clean sounding. Yeah, because
Yeah,
he's
so-
dying of throat cancer, and he's like, "Hey, I still sound like Val Kilmer." I don't know.
Well,
it
maybe,
was a very
but
touching scene.
They
that
could have
worked
used his
really,
son
really
and
well.
then maybe toned it down a bit or something. Like, I mean, ran it through some filters.
Well, also you probably
Yeah,
don't.
you
You
still
probably
wanna
don't
sound
want
like he's
somebody.
dying.
Yeah, you probably don't want to force somebody who's has throat cancer to be like, hey, but say some of these lines though.
Say these lines. It may end your life sooner, but
who
it's
cares?
really important that we get the shot and the emotional weight. It was all there. I agree with you, Ty. I think that was the emotional crux, other than Rooster and Maverick's relationship.
Yeah.
Father, son, even though, kind of like a godfather, always looking out after him and honoring his mother's wishes to pull his record from flight school. That was a good little twist there.
And also
And it
honoring
worked
her
in this
by
movie.
not telling the son that it was her
Yes,
request.
that it was-
And like
yes.
he already resents me. Why should he resent his dead mother? And that
Exactly.
was, yeah.
And that's good because, again, the emotional weight travels in this movie. It works because, like I said, when you want to do a good remake, you can't just rely on people's relationships. You do need some clarity, or at least have something in this story that drives relationships. You can't just say, "Oh, you were responsible for my father," which Maverick really wasn't responsible for Goose's death. Let's be real here, okay? But anyway, he dies, and then it's like years later, it's like, "Oh, I resent you because you're the reason my dad's dead, and I've never forgiven you up until this moment."
Yeah, I
It's
was so glad that wasn't
they were
his
friends,
motive.
and he was still friends with his mother, and they still had that important relationship going. And then what's great revealed is like, "Oh, I'm actually upset with him because he pulled my records." And now I'm set back 4 years in flight school. I thought that was a really well done. Again, you understood Maverick's motivation for doing it later in the film. That's a spoiler. And then obviously it still works as the narrative where there's that tension. He obviously feels responsible for Goose's death. He doesn't want to see the same thing happen to Rooster. So I like that. That was well done. That's how you make a good story years later. It's not just like, hey, The other guy with the mustache is going to die in this movie. He doesn't. He saves his life, and then he repays the favor. What were you thinking? I did this to save you. You told me not to think. I'm glad to see you.
My favorite scene was easily just Tom Cruise running, like in what he does best.
He ran 2 or 3
Yeah,
times.
Ty leaned over to me. He's like, because Ty has this
running.
joke that he thinks Tom Cruise is contractual to run in every single one of his movies. And
He's
so he's
obligated
like, there it is.
contractually to run in every single film that he's in. It happens when he's playing touch football or whatever at the beach. It's like, hey, we still have to fly this mission in a few weeks, and we're not even done with training. He's like, you said you wanted a team. I'm raising a team. Look out there on the beach. These guys are all friends. That's my best Tom Cruise impression. It's not very good, but...
But he does look good when
It's a
he's
work in
running.
progress.
Like, Ty always loves to run to him in War of the Worlds. It's so
It's not like
good.
I watch it every day when I'm on the treadmill, but yeah. I watch
Or
it every-
Mission Impossible 3 when
Watch
he's running
anything
through
with
that
Tom
town.
Cruise, you're going to run a quarter of a mile with Tom Cruise. It's pretty
Or
fun,
in the fourth
so.
and Ghost Protocol when the sand's behind him. That's a pretty dope scene.
There's an amazing scene in Mission Impossible 3 where he literally runs, like, what is it, 5 kilometers, or what's it called? He runs a 5K.
5K?
He literally does it all
a
through
5K,
Beijing or
Pat?
something. It's insane. A 5K? Yeah, that's a race, right?
That is
that,
a
is that
race.
where you put your feet to the ground and run? You move your feet? That's running.
I just want to say, too,
It's called jogging.
This,
The
this movie
soft J.
had such amazing suspense. I was like gripping my seat the whole time because those like building up the suspense of like an impossible mission, and then Tom Cruise showing them that it is possible under a certain amount of time, and it's essentially a suicide mission. Like everybody there knew like these kids are most likely not going to come back.
Their mission is to deliver the payload and stop the and return home.
Well, no, but it's just like
And return home.
well,
Jordan.
and not pass out hitting 10 Gs, like, and your aircraft only makes it to 7, and like, and them as they were flying by all those missiles, like, my heart was racing so fast. Oh my gosh. And the crowd was going nuts. Like, when those missiles, like, at the very end, when the guy saves him, people in the crowd were clapping, going, yeah!
Everyone kept
Wow!"
clapping. I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
The
you bro, this
etiquette
doesn't
is
represent
crazy.
real life
Movie theater
America,
etiquette
correct?
is lost. Yes, the etiquette in movie theaters is lost on you, and I love it. I'm so proud that they just applaud during a movie, clap when the credits roll, clap like 3 or 4 different times, and great viewing experience. In Wisconsin, everyone's just pretty fetch and silent. Like everyone just keeps to themselves how they're feeling in the movie theater. Like everyone's pretty guarded and plays it close to the chest.
But it's kind of that joint experience, you know. I actually
It
was
really
digging
is.
it this time
Yes.
because
Yeah.
when I watched
I
one of the
was.
Marvel movies, I was rolling my eyes, but this movie, I was enjoying it.
I think it's always
You're rolling
I
your
think
eyes because everyone's like, yeah, I'm wearing the T-shirt of the guy that's on the screen right now.
I think it's always better to have the people more involved because it honestly made Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent so much more enjoyable for me. Just having those idiots next to me because otherwise I'd have been like, this is like funny, I guess.
Are you saying that everyone that enjoys Nicolas Cage films are idiots,
Yes.
Cameron? Is that...
Yeah,
100%.
Cameron, is that
I
what you're
stand
saying
by that
about
to
us?
the day I die.
How dare you? Jeez. Nitpicks. Like I said, I
Well, I
already
got a
mentioned
couple.
my one. Yeah.
Okay,
let's
well,
hear some nitpicks.
First off, they never explained her backstory because I'm pretty sure she doesn't have the same name as the girl, and so we were just to assume. And then I was like, is he Tom Cruise the father of that girl? But then she's like, oh, my dad's in Hawaii, and I was like, your stepdad, or like your real? I'm assuming your real dad. And so I was kind of confused. And then she's like, don't break her heart again. Obviously she had passed, but I'm like, when did these two meet? Was it when he was like a flight instructor and got kicked out?
In the past, Cameron, they met.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so that was just one thing.
Dude, Jennifer Connelly doesn't need justification.
Well,
She doesn't need
that
a
was just-
backstory. You're all like, who is this mysterious bar owner who doesn't go anywhere that looks like Jennifer Connelly?
Well, that was the
and
problem
that's
too.
Still not
is
married.
that I wish they would have just explained it, like give it like 1 or 2 lines, just because I wasn't sure because I hadn't seen the first one in like a year or two. I'm like, is that the same name as the girl in the first one? And I was like, I don't think that is. And she doesn't look anything like her. And so I was like, well, how does he know this chick? Obviously they have history, but I just wish they would have been like, oh yeah, like, and just mentioned it. I also thought it was kind of funny how when they were like cheesily like cuddling, how from one scene to the next, like it just like skipped and everything was the exact same except Tom had his shirt off. And I was like, of course, Tom's shirt us off in this scene. Gosh dang it.
But boy, does he look good with his back against a pillow. That pillow, that's not a real pillow. There was no indentation. The thing was made out of like strict cardboard or foam, so he could be like positioned to lay beautifully. Like, what man has ever looked that beautiful laying against a bed frame? I'm just saying. My goodness, folks.
Ty.
Wow. Yeah, no. Tom Cruise, I mean, I'm not
Oh my god.
Okay.
Jeez.
I am editing that out.
All right.
Watching too much Mandy time.
Oh, the other thing, yeah. Well, I already mentioned his facial hair. Just love that. Again, explain it in the story. Have a picture of them. You don't have to look the same as your father. I mean, you resemble him, but
What would have been a nitpick, but ended up being something I was really grateful for, and I talked to you two about it, is I was so grateful that they put Tom on the team. I was going to be so mad if they're like, there's only one person in the world that can do this, and it's you, but we want you to send out these kids to go essentially kill themselves. I'm like, why not send out the best pilot in the world to do this impossible mission?
I was thinking that a few times. I'm like, yeah, how is they going to
have him in a room and be like,
in a room,
you can do it.
Thinking in that blue light room, yeah, and he's sitting there next to John Hamm, and they're arguing, and then he punches him. I thought there would be that moment where he's like, "Hey, you're setting them to die." It's like you knew this was a suicide mission. I thought there was going to be that scene, but I was actually kind of just relieved that he was flying.
And then, also they subverted my expectations many times when I was like, oh, like Tom Cruise sacrifices himself for Rooster to make up for Goose's death, and then like Rooster saving his life, and then because I thought Tom was gonna die, and then I thought Rooster died, and then I thought it was fun how they both like were good, and then made it back, and then like just stole the plane.
The F-14. I actually really like that scene.
There was just
they blow up
unguarded
the runway, which is inoperable, but they literally take the F-14 and they fly out of there. I mean, yes, it's a close call.
But then, and also the fact that there's just a plane that's completely untouched. That's just like exactly what he knows how to work. I was like, that's
thank goodness it's an American plane.
I did love that scene. I love the scene where like they find each other, they have to sneak back down into the lion's den,
and when
even
he runs,
like walking
when he
like
runs to him
else,
and pushes
okay,
him.
maybe we should run. And then
when we watched Grant was like, I was really worried when they went there because he's like, he thought they were gonna like knock out some pilots, take their suits,
Impossible.
and I was like, dude, I would love a scene where Tom Cruise and Miles Teller just stand on each other's shoulders and they put a big trench coat overhead and they pretend to be giant Muppet Man.
Gosh.
He's in this top suit. I don't know. It just made me laugh thinking like how long they could make this scene go for, you know. But there was a great scene. One of my favorite moments of humor was when they're flying beside the enemy aircraft and they're pretending their comms are dead. And so he signals to him like with his fist and 3. And he's like, what is that? What is he trying to tell us? He's like, I've never seen that gesture before. I don't know what he's saying. And then he goes, what about that one? I don't know that one either. And they just give the thumbs up like, yeah. And then he's like, okay, one's moving into attack position, like right behind us. It was just a great way to build suspense while using humor, because it's like, oh no, like the stakes are being raised. It was a great moment where the enemy aircraft tailed them. When
and also see, like that's just a great scene that was like very like reasonable, where like he immediately shot and killed that first thing. That way he could actually like
surprise attack.
It's a 1v1 because that's
dude.
What I hate when they
bring
just
it back to Cobra Kai. Strike first, no mercy.
Well, that's what I hate is when they're like, oh, there's like your plane has no chance against that plane, and there's 2 of them, and then that's what I like too is the other pilots use like defensive maneuvers and use their flares, and so they were actually competent pilots instead of being like in most movies where the enemy is always like you dodge their missiles and like everything they fire at you, and you fire at them once, and it's a one-hit kill. I thought it was dope how he used the other plane to block that one missile. That was insane. The plane that was already falling, and he just
double tap.
He just finished that dude off.
You know what scene I thought was the funniest, and by the way, you almost forget this scene took place. I think that the very beginning scene of him jumping on the old motorcycle right into the place where he can try flying I think it's the SR-10 or whatever, the supersonic plane where he rides at Mach 10, which I've just looked up, by the way, and it's like 7,673 miles an hour. And like, but he does that, and of course it's really funny because they tell him, hey, like 10, not 10.1, not 10.2, like we're contracted at 10, and they get to 10 and they're celebrating, and he's just pushing it a little further, and the his black friend just like, oh no, and then of course he crashes. It cracks me up when like he lands wherever he lands, and then he walks into a diner in a place that looks like Omaha, Nebraska or something like that, and he like he walks in there and he asks for a glass of water. He's like fried, and he's drinking that water, looking around everywhere, and just asks like, where am I? And like when you're going 7,673 miles an hour, like you could be anywhere. Like that's that scene was a great way to start
the kid
film.
responding, Earth.
Earth.
He thinks he's an alien.
Yeah.
Yeah, Earth, that's right.
That was great. That was great. It was really impressive too. And again, it does a good job at showcasing his ability as a pilot early on in the film. Again, independent of you already know he's a pilot from the first movie, it reestablishes that again here. All good scenes. Like, again, this is a well-told story, and it's good. So take some notes here, future filmmakers.
Yep.
Because I know future filmmakers listen to our podcast. All right, guys, let's get into any other nitpicks or quotes
Jim
you guys
Cummings
can throw
does.
out there as you think of them.
He's a filmmaker.
I like B.O.B. or not B.O.B., but Bob. They're like, what does Bob stand for? What's his acronym? He's like, oh, but you have a
Baby
menacing
on
flight
board.
name, right? He's like, Bob, yeah, baby on board. Is what Pac-Man calls him. I thought that was funny.
I was worried Bob was gonna die. I'm like, not Bob.
Yeah, but Jordan's like, let Phoenix die. I didn't care if she
I was
died,
wondering
but-
if he was going to die too, because I was like, is this really going to be exactly like the first movie where it was through a training exercise that disaster struck, and like I was worried about. He seemed like the beloved character that would go down, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah, he
and,
was so innocent and never said anything to like hurt anybody, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, he's got to go.
Exactly. He's the one that would die because he's the goody little two shoes. Like, oh no, Bob's dead.
Nope.
We have to go back for Bob. His death will be in vain.
Yep. My nitpick
Scene
was
never
the
came.
exact same thing as Cam's. I just I thought the love story was great. I thought it was much better than the first movie, but it took me a while to catch on, like, are we pretending that this is the same actress from the first movie? We're just using a different actress for obvious reasons. Or is it somebody else? And I couldn't quite catch, like, where did they meet? When? How serious? Is that child his? Like, it took a while. I mean, I heard the dad thing in Hawaii, but like that, I mean, that was.
Yeah, you thought it might just get revealed like it is your son or it is your daughter.
Yeah, 'cause there was
Like,
too much.
I lied.
There was too much left for interpretation. Where I'm just like, and it's not like one of those things where you're like, you want to leave up to like audience interpretation. Like that's not really like a big plot thing. It's just like that's probably something we should know is like what their
No,
relationship
that would have been a
is.
great thing where he calls Jennifer Connelly and she's like, it's your
I
daughter.
had no idea where I wanted to know where I just had to assume, okay, that's who he met when he came back as the flight instructor the first time, and it didn't work out. And I was surprised by that because everything else in the film, from his history with Rooster to like his history with the other two, like, kind of teacher instructor type individuals, at least like admins in the school, like everything else was like really, you knew who everyone was. They set the stage great. But the love story was such a critical piece of the movie. I was like, I'm surprised they didn't make this a little clearer than it turned out to be. So that was my one nitpick.
They knew that cranky old men like our father who watched it, and that was his only criticism of the film. They're like, this is the most we can put Jennifer Connelly into this movie.
No, well, and that's the thing that I think is impressive is like pretty much you can almost watch this as a standalone. Pretty much the only thing that you would need to watch from the first one is just how Goose like died, is because you just don't really understand that fully in this movie just watching this. But pretty much besides that, they did such a good job,
Right.
like Tyler said, of like referencing back and being like, okay, yeah, here's like the little things that you might have missed if you haven't seen it or it's been a long time.
Yep.
And it hasn't been that long, the other movie came out in 1986, so it's only like
A couple of years.
nearly 40 years later. How crazy is that you have a movie starring Tom Cruise?
Yeah, 30,
Nearly 40.
36?
It's 35, 36 years later. Just saying, that's remarkable.
Sort of a side note, but on the subject of years, since it took so many years for this movie to finally be released, I did look up on Wikipedia, and the reason it didn't release in 2019 and was rescheduled for 2020 was because they did decide that they wanted to fit in some additional shots, which I'm glad they took their time, but because they got an additional basically 3 years to film this, does anybody know if during that time more and more was added to this film? Like, is the lesson here, hey, take 3 years to make a movie?
As long as it comes out great.
Actually, it was more than
DC
3
needs
years
to take
because
10 years on every film then. Goodness gracious. They
Yeah.
crank those things out in the garbage.
Tom Cruise isn't even alive anymore. Rest in peace. Yeah,
I know.
That's right. That's right.
But does
We'll be
anybody
able to
know?
watch his films.
Does anybody know that if there was more shots
don't-
added through the years?
I don't know if there was anything added.
I'm pretty
or
sure I
taken away in
heard
that
something
time.
about one of the reasons they postponed it was because of Tenet and how bad it did in box office. While there was like the restrictions, that was why they bumped it out of 2019. I'm pretty sure, or like was just
This is before COVID. Yeah, 19 was before COVID,
No,
so they had to.
yeah.
Well, it like became more apparent. Yes,
Yeah.
it could have been around as early as October.
Tenet came out before
folks,
COVID.
don't get your medical advice from us, a movie podcast. But yes, 19. It wasn't postponed because of that. Like
Tenet
Tyler
came out
said,
20,
it
I
was because of
think.
reshoots. Now, after with the pandemic, they then started releasing it later and
Yeah.
later, and they kept pushing it. Just like Batman. Finally, they're just like, we got to release this thing. Like, no one's gonna even watch
then
it
it
if we
sucked.
don't. People don't talk about it. It's not even relevant anymore.
This
but
is everything Batman should have been. Ty.
But see, this movie's already breaking records as far as box office sales. Like,
Is it?
It's gotten all.
How's it doing?
It's remarkable. I just heard about it. It said it was setting some records.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but
when-
it's always
when you
funny.
release
They're
it
always
over
like, "Hey,
Memorial
made the
Day
most in a
weekend."
Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, my ticket cost $15. Holy. It better be breaking records because, man, it's breaking my account to go see a movie anymore these days.
You mean mom and dad's account? They paid for it. Cheap.
No, because I paid for my wife to go see it like a few days later because I loved it and I was like, we got to go see this movie. So I sent her with her family to go see it while I watched The Three Kids, which was fun. And I'm still here and the kids are still here. So everybody listening, that's okay. Kids are alive. So everybody, we end every movie podcast. Oh, real quick, by giving our final say, would you recommend this film?
Yes, in the
Yes,
theaters.
this movie is for everyone. If you are 5 years and older, you're going to love this film.
But you have to watch
You're
it in
going
the
to be
theaters.
blown away, entertained, IMAX. Go see it on the biggest screen you can, the loudest speakers that you can.
Yeah,
it's a thrill ride.
preferably not
Absolute
laptop
joy.
or iPhone.
Yeah, not on your phone.
On your iPhone. And then if you could tilt the screen like Fly with Tom Cruise, maybe that's a more interactive and immersive experience for some, Just making your phone fly around the room. All right. We end every movie podcast by sharing movies that we've seen lately, movies that we're looking forward to. Tyler, what have you been watching lately? What are you looking forward to seeing?
Ah, man. We watched we watched Top Gun 1 recently so that, Yesenia could know. And I was actually, I'm like really pleasantly just like surprised that Yesenia has gone to some sporting events and she's seen some classic movies and she loves them to death. Like she just wasn't exposed to this stuff growing up. So it's like, it's really cool that she actually really liked Top Gun, like probably more than any of us here really liked Top Guns. And then Maverick, she came out of the theater and said, that's the best movie. I think that's the best movie I've ever seen. I don't know about that, but it's up there. Like as far as like the movie theater experience goes, probably one of the best. So
as far as IMDb, they put it in number 55 of the top 250 movies
really?
rated by IMDb users. So
yeah, and that's,
there you go.
I'm fine with that. It was a really good experience. It was probably my best movie theater experience, whether it was the best movie or not. But anyways, I saw that recently. I have been watching The Office. The Office episodes as well as Modern Family. I always honestly watched The Office episodes so many times like growing up that like I really thought that I had overdone it. It was on Netflix for years and I knew it was there and I would never go back and rewatch it because I just thought I'm burnt out. But I guess it's been 10 years or so since I've done a healthy binge of The Office, and so I'm feeling good.
But
about
it's just
it
as good, isn't it?
Oh,
I've
look at that.
rewatched
Yeah.
it so many times.
Give it time.
Oh, yeah.
It's always great. After a couple of years, so really well
It
done.
gets funnier and it holds up.
We're
over
rewatching
time,
it right now
for sure.
too, Tyler. I love it. Love
Yes.
it.
Yep.
Excellent. And then movies you're looking forward to seeing?
Oh shoot, this was it. Honestly, like this is that's part of the reason I really like this film is that it's been a long time since I have really wanted a movie to come out. So this was it. This was the one that I wanted to come out in 2019. Batman I wanted to see because you always want to see the new Batman. That's kind of a remake of a classic in and of itself. So I don't know, guys. I mean, what movie? You tell me. What movies am I supposed to get excited about now?
Thor: Love and Thunder.
Well, I don't know what your threshold for violence and crude humor is, but The Boys season 3 is coming out.
Oh,
this
that's
weekend,
right, this
which I'm
weekend.
very much looking forward to. While everyone else is watching Stranger Things and Kenobi,
I did
which
not
really
like
don't have
Stranger
any dis-
Things.
I haven't
I'm
watched
sorry.
Stranger Things 4 is a dumpster fire.
Dude,
I'm just gonna
episode
tell you
1
right
was
now. That's my hot
garbage.
take.
I'm like, I'm done.
I'm one
I've
episode
loved
away
it.
from finishing it. It is a dumpster fire.
It's so
I'm
dumb.
sorry.
I've loved
It's
it.
bad. It's not Stranger Things. I'll put it that way. Like, it's probably a perfectly competent show. It's very much like a remake or reboot of like Nightmare on Elm Street. That's literally what it is. It's very strange.
It just felt like
Got
so much high school
exorcism.
drama. I was like, gag.
There's no high
There's
school drama.
no
in this
high
one,
school
Jordan.
drama. What
There's
are you
no
talking
high
You
school
did not
drama.
watch the first episode.
I did watch the
he
first.
did.
That's the only episode I
No,
watched.
no,
You
he
did
started
not.
the first episode.
Yeah,
he
and
got 4
he's
minutes
like,
into it. He's like,
no,
I
high
watched the
school
first
drama.
episode. It's an hour and 20 minutes long, Jordan. You
I
fool.
did like the angle that she's kind of like Carrie. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Jordan-
yes, there is a lot of similarities to movies like that, like Nightmare on Elm Street, Carrie, all the old 80 horror films.
It does.
I agree with
You
Jordan,
keep saying
though.
Nightmare. I love Nightmare on Elm Street. It doesn't feel like Nightmare. It feels dumb.
Well, keep watching. There's
Oh, okay,
literally
better.
a scene directly out of Nightmare on Elm Street. Like
okay.
literally, woman thrown against the ceiling, gets contorted and dies. It's literally the same.
So Jordan, I agree with you 100%. Like when you said you don't like high school drama, I actually really liked Stranger Things 1, and I think part of the reason I liked it was because they were in that like cool junior high school age. It's the same thing with like Wonder Years. I love the Wonder Years as a show. Like I'm talking the original Wonder Years. I realize that there's a remake with a black family that's actually very good too. But the junior high years are my favorite. High school starts losing its charm. So like I think it's the same thing with Stranger Things. Like it's not going to be as fun when they're 16, 17. It was fun when they were 12 or 13, and like, you know, that was. So I probably wouldn't like the fourth season. I didn't even like the second and third season that much.
Yeah, the second and third just like watered down versions of the first season.
Yeah,
And I felt, I don't know, it was just like they had spent so much more time on Hopper, which I absolutely loved from the first season. Seeing his backstory and his kid, I got so emotional. But I mean, it's kind of like Cobra Kai too. This like later seasons, I'm like, so much soap opera drama.
Yeah. And
But to me, I don't mind it as long as I care about the characters. If I care
Yeah,
about
that's
them.
true. And I feel like too much is going on in this new season. At least
Oh
for
my
me.
God,
So
yes.
much is going on.
Thank you.
And that's what,
There's
Too
too
much.
much
See,
going on.
I actually
Yeah,
enjoy that because it reminds me a little bit of the Game of Thrones where there's so many plot lines going on. That's what I enjoy because otherwise,
But it's not done well. Like,
I think it's
I
done
can
well.
hold in all the information, but I was like, why does any of this matter? It's like
I know.
we're not going to spend enough time on something that matters. Like
Because we're
spoilers,
watching Better
if you
Call
guys
Saul right
care.
now, Ty, and it's
Yes.
just like
They are
I love
juggling
the
so
pacing,
much.
and I'm just
Yes.
like I want something where I can see what's going on because there's
I'm
too
surprised. I
much.
thought you guys would really enjoy it because it's more of a horror aspect. I'm really enjoying it.
Yes, it is more horrifying. There is like visuals in this season that they haven't quite done before. Literally contortions of bodies, jaws getting dislocated, and eyeballs getting sucked out of their sockets. I
It's
mean,
just, like,
pretty
cheesy to
horrifying.
me.
Like,
Oh my gosh, that's because you're so
I mean, it's
desensitized and
definitely
you're a
not-
sicko.
I mean, it's not like I watched the animation and I was like, oh, that looks so real. It was just like, it's pretty gross what they're trying to put on screen. That's my point.
It's a
Like,
PG-13
dude, I'm
version of the
desensitized.
sicko
I'm a
stuff that you like,
desensitized
Jordan.
fudge, okay? Yeah, I'm a
Okay.
garbage disposal. I watched some really disturbing, messed up stuff. But that one, I was like, okay, as far as where Stranger Things was, it was like a nosebleed and a van flying overhead. Now it's like, let's contort this body and suck out the eyeballs. I'm just saying, the charm is gone. So
Yeah.
if you're watching Stranger Things and you watch it for charm and the nostalgia, this has some nostalgia, but it's like for the things that were more horrifying that they didn't bother to deal with in the earlier seasons of the show. Now it's like we're full-blown horror. It's still TV-14, and I'm like, I didn't think you could do this just gruesome stuff on TV-14.
And
It's
every
like,
time
oh.
I see that girl that should have ended up with Steve-O, I'm just like, I hate this girl so much.
Oh yeah, I hate that dude.
Yeah, Cameron hates
It's so
her not
stupid.
because she's but independent of the fact. She's just wanted that clear
Oh,
on the
absolutely.
podcast.
Well, no, it's
But
because
that freaking ruined the show.
it's because she had perfect chemistry with freaking Steve, and then they're like, "Oh, like, there was literally no hint of that ever." But okay,
Again, yes, and they're still
like at
teasing
least
along in this season. I'm
at
like,
this season, they're like at least like being like, "Oh yeah," because like she's way more in
also,
this season than she was in the
Mormon
last season.
cameos are super funny in TV and movies, always, and they ruined a great opportunity in this because they did not do the research in what Mormons believe or what they act like. I mean, there's a whole
Hey, don't spoil, don't
montage
spoil, don't
of them
spoil.
going. Okay, anyway, it's not a good representation of Mormon family, and they had a great moment where they could have made it really funny and done all these really funny things.
Should have done the
It was
research
like,
and done.
that's not
watch
accurate at
South
all.
Park.
Yeah, exactly. Just do.
Yeah, but you
do
don't
the
want
South Park
them,
thing.
Ty, you don't want them to be too much research, like that new movie with the Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield coming
oh my
out,
gosh,
Ty.
yeah, Under the Banner of Heaven. Yeah, with,
that's not even a movie. I think that's like
It's a
made
TV series.
multiple episodes.
It's a TV series, yeah.
yeah, and yeah,
And Ty, they showed like
I haven't heard of it.
they have like, and then they
they go too far.
Right on, dude. Hey, as Gordon Hinckley once said, publicity's publicity. Good, bad. It's publicity, man.
He was talking about the Mormon musical, wasn't he?
Yeah, dude, but you watch that and you're like, wow. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously there's things that we hold sacred, and if you make a mockery of it, it's like, whoa.
It's like publicity,
Get some
publicity.
permission first. Publicity's publicity, but there's also sacrilege,
well,
man.
yeah.
Sacrilege.
Yeah,
Anyway,
someone's burning for
I'm
that
just
one.
saying, yes, exactly. exactly.
would not want to be responsible for that.
Exactly.
Those sins
so,
aren't on my
folks,
head. Whoa, watch it.
so that's one thing I would look forward to is I heard Ben Kenobi's good. It's got pretty good reviews from both audience
Yeah,
and critics, which
nothing
doesn't
too
necessarily mean
special.
anything.
I talked to
But
one of my
I am interested
buddies.
because it does actually star Ewan McGregor. My fear was that he wasn't going to be part of the show at all because there was a whatever leak about this new character, and it was going to be about her story while they literally titled it Kenobi. But so far, he's in the first 2 episodes, and it's all centers around him. But I'm still skeptic. They have 6 episodes to fudge this up, so maybe they'll eventually shift to another character.
I think it's already fudged, using your terminology. It's cool that they got the same actor. That makes it feel kind of like it's Star Wars still. But this is Disney-fied.
Pushing it out.
This is Disney-fied, and
Disney-fied.
Disney's gotten so radical, and they're thinking the villain, the apparent main villain so far. Obviously, Darth Vader is the main villain, but is a they're really centering around Princess Leia because they want Princess Leia to be this 10-year-old that's wise beyond her years, and it really centers around her, and I don't know, it's and I'm not nothing wrong against or it's just not very Star Wars. It's not, and so it's Disney-fied now, and I don't love it.
Yeah, let's just regulate them to their role. Jabba slaves or ones that hand out the medals at the end of the movie. That's a good role for.
I didn't mean that. I wasn't saying go that far. But,
Yeah, I think the pendulum swung a little too far the other way.
Oh, is that what happened? Okay, sorry. See, I'm always behind the 8 ball there.
It just doesn't feel very genuine Star Wars to me, is all I'm saying. It's George Lucas is far removed now, so.
It's just messaging at this point. Yeah, propaganda.
Or they're gonna write more Rose characters.
Hey, love Rose. Her
entire arc is to ruin another character's arc. She's like, my arc is to ruin Finn's arc, and to save him from completing his arc. Dumbass.
Or steal a kiss. There was not consent there. I will tell you that. Finn was very surprised that she kissed him and then literally murdered the resistance. The rebellion, the Rebel Alliance was murdered in her brash decision to kamikaze Finn.
So stupid.
Oh gosh, that's so great. So anyway, I'm only going. I haven't seen any of Kenobi yet, so I'm very tentative because again, this is coming from my mother-in-law who's like, no, it centers Ewan McGregor, because I told her my fears and she's like, don't worry, that he's in it. And I'm like, I don't think you realize though, because see, I wanted a story where it's literally just Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor just ghost chatting. That's it. I just wanted that. I just want to see the 2 of them talking, because he's like, where's my son and my daughter? I've lost my wife. And he's like, why did you lose your wife, Anakin? Why? And he'd call him Anakin and he's like, I'm not Anakin anymore. I'm freaking Darth Vader. I wanted an emotional, just the 2 of them talking. They did it with Kylo and they did it with Rey, and even that was forced and shirtless. I don't know why it was shirtless. It doesn't matter.
Because he was FaceTiming his girl. He had to have his shirt on.
Oh, I didn't know you were going to force call. Should I just hang up until after the shower? No, I'll just take it right now. Let's get the call going. What the fudge? Oh, anyway, what a weird Disney, dude. What the freak? I cannot believe they bought the rights, $4 billion for the rights, and didn't even think, not even once, no one, Kathleen Kennedy, Ryan Johnson, no one told them that they should have an overarching story for a trilogy. Dude, this isn't rocket science. You don't need anyone to explain to you that you might need an overall arcing story for a trilogy. Holy dude. Wow.
Okay.
So anyway, that's where I stand with Star Wars right now. It is being piloted by idiots, by morons, and they're not going to accomplish the mission in under 2 minutes and 15 seconds is my point. Tie into the movie Maverick. Anyway, what else have you seen, Cameron? What have you been watching lately?
I've been on a Marvel binge, just trying to, I've been doing all the stuff that I didn't want to watch I just watch it while I play Mario Kart.
Which counts as watching a movie, right?
It does.
You got it while you're playing Mario Kart.
Hey, it's okay. I mean, it's muted, so I hear all the dialogue, and then I glance up occasionally when there's action. The
movie's muted, or the Mario Kart's muted?
The movie should be muted for some of them. I watched Eternals, which was an hour too long, and they had one of the best casts of all time, and somehow butchered it. I'm like, what? And then
now, do you say best cast because you find Angelina Jolie compelling, or do you say that because it's the highest paid cast?
Well, they had a bunch of Game of Thrones characters who were fantastic in Game of Thrones, and then they just
absolutely
Paperboy. And Paperboy from Atlanta. I thought he'd be cool.
Yeah, and so they just totally butchered him, cool. And yeah, he's in this one out of the blue. Paperboy, dude.
Then, of course, gotta have that checklist, Karen.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, they had every checklist, every character, and there was
Paperboy would be upset about
one of the main characters. I couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl, and it was a 12 or 13-year-old person who was immortal, and I must have been I never knew what gender it was. And then I watched Moon Knight. I mean, a lot of missed potential there.
Oh, dude, no, she was great. The winged, phantasmic
Gosh.
lady.
Yes, I
she
know.
was so great, dude.
MCU. Okay, we get it. And then
The wings.
in
Take you under my
I-
motherly
I
love.
also finished Loki, which I mean, it's probably my second.
Is there still only
favorite.
one season of Loki?
Yeah,
So far, yes.
which is probably my. It says 12 episodes. Maybe they're coming out with new ones. But yeah, it was probably my second favorite of them all, which isn't saying much because my first is probably WandaVision, and then everything else is kind of just trash.
I totally agree. I literally start with Wanda. I'm like, hey, I like where this is. This could be interesting.
Yeah.
And then it's like Loki, and then Falcon Winter Soldier,
Yeah.
Moon Knight,
After Falcon,
like-
I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, dude.
No, dude, that
Falcon-
scene in Falcon, you have to do better, Senator.
Yeah, when-
this terrorist tried to attempt to take my life 5 minutes ago, and you're chastising
So-
me
Yeah.
on my policies? Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then
No.
I also watched Batman Assault on Arkham, which Jordan has, which it was better than every single Marvel movie I saw. And it's a cartoon, and it's an hour and 16 minutes. See, Marvel, you take notes. They can do a better plot in an hour and 16 minutes, and it's all animated.
Marvel died
so
with the
funny.
last Avengers movie for me. So
Yeah, Endgame. Yeah, they called it Endgame. It's like maybe we were jumped the gun because
Yeah.
now we got to get people to see all these
Well,
many
plus-
films
just,
lined
they're
up.
just doing
back away
st-
respectfully.
She-Hulk.
They're just
back
doing
away respectfully. Like
They're just
you know,
doing things, and it sucks because it's even my guilty pleasure, which is like the only reason I'll watch it, and I still don't enjoy it. I'm like, I'm giving you every benefit of every doubt ever, and I'm still not enjoying it. How? Like, I'm like, for an objective viewer, this is trash. It's just painful.
I can't wait for She-Hulk to be released. I am so excited for that one. Oh my goodness. For just the hallmark of like
I also rewatched.
it's changing the
rewatched-
scope and our understanding
Shush.
and reimagining
And I
superheroes.
rewatched Thor Ragnarok, which, man, holy cow, that movie is so fun. I forgot how much happens in that movie, and just everything about
It's
it
a
is
fun
just
one.
so
Taika.
well written.
He is so funny.
Yes. Jeff Goldblum.
I hate Jeff Goldblum.
Yes.
He makes me so uncomfortable all the time. And then I watched
Yes. Oh, you get uncomfortable,
I watched
Cameron.
This Is the End, which was pretty funny, really profane.
Pretty
I
funny.
Do not recommend to anyone ever, but it's funny.
So fetching funny, dude.
And then I'm just excited for mainly Thor and
Oh, I know what
Love
he's talking
and
about.
Thunder.
He's talking about a revive. We're giving up a revive.
Emma Watson.
It's gonna be you. Nobody's.
Oh no, we were
I
just
was
talking about
sorry.
how
I
no
tried
one
to
was
save
going
him.
to.
I tried to save him. You're already in the hole, man. Screw you.
Bye, Rihanna.
Pull me up.
But yep, and then
Oh, that's
that's
good.
pretty much it. And then also Snatch
Awesome.
was recommended to me from Justin Watsaba, which because he was asking me if I like Guy Ritchie
I
films.
recommended
director of
Snatch. I
Wrath of
recommended
Man.
Snatch. Of course, you didn't even bother to see it until your friend recommends it. Now you'll see it.
Guy
Brad Pitt,
Ritchie.
it's a good performance. Guy Ritchie film, dude. You're gonna love it, Cameron.
Yeah.
I
don't
think
know
it
if it'd be better
rivals
than
Gentleman. It's up
No.
there.
impossible.
Nah, it's freaking
No,
good. dude. Snatch-
it's Wrath of Man,
It has all
then
the
the
hallmarks.
Gentleman.
Dude, you're so
then-
high. Wrath of Man is not his best one. You're so dumb. I hate you.
Wrath of Man is not a Guy Ritchie film. It's a good movie, just not a Guy Ritchie
Yeah,
film.
it is not a Guy Ritchie film.
All right, Tyler, you want to plug your channel?
Social media.
For me, YouTube. I'm the Jinja Ninja. That's Ginga Ninja. Spelled
And isn't it the Ginger Ninja, right? Not
the
just
Jinja Ninja. Yeah, whichever one has 1 million subscribers, that's not me. And and then
We'll let him think it's
and
you.
then just Ty Hux on Instagram. Yeah. So
I want to share what I've seen lately and what I'm looking forward to. I went and watched The King again with Timothy Chalamet and friggin' Edward Cullen. I always call him
So
that.
good.
Robert Pattinson. That's
So
an amazing
good.
film.
With
The
a
King,
speech
it's
almost
great.
as good as Braveheart's speech. Second best.
Yeah, I fell for it. I'm like, I'll fight for England. You know.
Oh,
Hell,
yeah,
I'll
dude.
take up a sword and
And
you're gonna die
for
tomorrow. If
nothing.
you die today, if I die yesterday, it mattereth not. We die. We take up arms today. This is England. I'm like, yeah, freak yeah. And then I watched This Is the End with Cameron and Grant. We had a great time, laughing so hard. Danny McBride's character is unbelievably funny.
hilarious.
Yeah, Jordan,
Wasting
what are
the
some of his
water,
favorite
wasting
lines,
the.
Jordan?
He makes them this amazing breakfast for them, and they're like, "You ate all the food, you moron!" He doesn't. He wakes up the next morning not realizing that the end of the world is upon them. The rapture happened, so he like exhausts all of the food that they had stored up and makes this amazing breakfast for everyone. It's just so funny. It's great, dude.
It's all right.
It's so funny, dude. And
Why are you breathing so loud?
why are you breathing so loud?
I'm not breathing
I don't know how else to breathe. Hey, it's Seth Rogen. Can you do your chuckle? Dude. And then I watched the beta test with Jordan. Jordan showed me the beta test. Jim Cummings movie.
forced you to
Is it
watch
Tim
it?
or Jim? I always forget his
Jim.
name. Jim Cummings. I liked it. I think he's an insane actor. I think he's like onto something.
he's a better actor than director.
He's tapping into something. It probably was like a passion project of his. I didn't like it as much as Wolf of Snow Hollow. I think he's destined to just be.
Did you like it better than?
I think it's
first
better
movie?
than Thunder Road.
Thunder Road.
Barely.
Yes, I think the premise, yes. The
Actually, I don't
acting
know. I
is
actually
really
might
well
like
done in
Thunder
Thunder
Road
Road,
better.
but I think the story had more interesting things to say
That
than Thunder Road
that
did.
long
Thunder
no
Road is a
cut
good
for-
movie about an actor and his relationship with his family, but Beta Test had like a lot more going for it, like the intrigue, the whole
Dude, his
premise, the
teeth.
Beta
Oh
Test
my
itself
gosh,
is
Ty,
interesting.
were you just disgusted when you saw what wasn't in the front, like the non-visible, and it's just decaying while this is like perfectly white, where his smile is?
Dude,
Psycho.
it was very interesting. So, and then I watched a movie called Alone, which was pretty good. It's like one of those 2020 films that was like starred two people. It had one of the actors from Ozark. Who's one of the redneck guys that get killed in the first season. And it had some chick that was from, I don't know what she's from. It was a good movie. It's called Alone. And it's like 90 from critics and like 54 for audience members. And I think I know why.
Kind of
Pretty
like
low
Men.
budget. Dude, I laughed out loud when I saw that trailer. Like,
that's
Men.
so
It's called
dumb.
Men. It's diabolical and it's men. I was like, dude, that's perfect.
I saw that in the
It speaks to our
theaters.
culture. Men are the titular villain in the movie. It's great. So.
So bad.
You know what, guys? I did remember one movie that I just watched recently, and I'm upset at
Yeah.
all of you guys for not telling me that this movie was great. The Last Samurai. We watched The Last
The Last Samurai.
Yesenia and I, and none of you jokers told me that was a great film. Like, speaking of Tom Cruise, Yesenia and I really liked that one. It was like...
I probably need to watch that again. I watched that when I was 13 thinking it would be a bunch of samurai action
Yeah,
and
me
ninja
too.
fighting.
I thought it was so
I think it's a
boring.
more of a stoic character film. I should probably watch that one.
It's
Yeah, Ryan
emotionally
loves
very...
that movie.
It's emotionally
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
like... It's very satisfying. I think it's a great
Hey,
movie.
and Tom Cruise really fought with katana swords, folks. Nearly got his head lopped off. So there's that going for it.
Is that right? Is
Thank you,
is that true?
Yeah, real swords, dude. Kind of like the Viggo Mortensen.
Well,
when-
real swords, but like, did he almost lose his head in the action?
Yes, apparently he was doing some stunt, and it's like, oh, it could have lost your head if that went wrong. So very exciting stuff. Tom Cruise is a crazy guy, dude.
Yeah,
will
he
get
is.
killed
I
like
can't believe
Steve
he's so
Irwin
alive.
doing what he loves. He will die in a movie stunt, and I can't wait for it to happen because they won't release the movie, of course, but they will make a documentary about it, and we can watch someone else like Miles Teller play him as a younger self and go through all of his movies again. I'm just very much looking forward to it, folks. He better die like Steve Irwin. If he doesn't die doing a stunt in a movie,
Miles Teller doesn't even look like him.
he does kind of look like him, dude. He looks more like him than he does with Goose.
No, he looks so similar to Goose.
The mustache fooled you.
The
Cameron.
Mr. Bean guy is coming out with a new
Rowan
movie
Atkinson?
on Netflix. It's Man vs. Bee.
Yeah,
Looks
it's
kind
a
of funny.
series.
Oh, it's a series? I thought it was just a movie.
It's a series.
Man versus B.
I don't know.
I
if
love
that-
Rowan Atkinson. I'll watch anything he does. He's a brilliant guy.
Oh yeah, he's so funny. But
And
yeah.
then,
I was just gonna say really quick, the first half of Men was really good. Second half, they got too like
Green
Alex
Knight.
Garland. I don't know what happened. He dropped the ball. He's made amazing movies, and then he did this. And that second half, it was just like interpretive.
Oh, you went and saw
him?
him?
Hey, but
Yeah, I saw it.
that's kind of the same thing as Annihilation a little bit. Second half, I was kind of like,
Yeah, but you
whoa.
can still enjoy it for a film.
Yeah, that's true. Because second half, I was kind of like, whoa, you're starting to lose me. What's going on in my brain?
Yeah, but it was fun, and I don't know. I just loved
Yeah,
that.
after they had the mirroring monster, the mirroring monster was so intense and so dope, and then I was like, what the fudge?
I kind of want to see Jordan Peele's new movie, Nope. That looked kind of interesting. Just because, I mean, I'm willing to give him another chance after Us.
Us
I'm
was
like,
good.
you're just going to kind of paint yourself into this M. Night Shyamalan corner where it's like, if you don't have any new interesting things to say on race or about culture, like, don't. Stop. Just make a different movie. But it's like, oh, you were such a prolific scary movie guy. Like, maybe you're the scary movie guy. It's like, you did comedy before this. Like, you could still do comedy. Like, anyway.
I was gonna send you a clip, Ty, when I was watching Men, where he's giving birth to himself, and he's like screaming as his stomach inflates.
I just love the sound of what you're describing.
I
right
wanted
now.
wanted so badly to send that because I almost burst out
Birth to
laughing. I'm
himself?
like, this is so stupid. Oh, jeez.
Well, at least women can live out their fantasy.
I
and
get
thinking
the
that men
idea
can
is-
suffer through what they go through with pregnancy and childbearing.
Well, I like the idea that like she's tormented by this guy that she was probably abused by, and she's seeing his face on everybody, and it's like she's projecting her fear of this man onto every guy she meets. And like I like
Yeah.
that idea, and it's clever and fun, but it's just I don't know, just the ending. It It
But
just
at the end, she's like, "You need to do better, men. You need to do
no,
better."
it became surreal and it stopped.
It started being
becoming-
Green Knight. That's what happened.
Yeah, there you go. And I wasn't a fan of Green Knight, so
Yeah, Green Knight sucks. And people who say that it was good, you're a sicko and a pervert. And then you get checked on.
Folks, guys, gals, fellas, we love you. Thanks for listening. I watched half of The Constant Gardener. I'm looking forward to finishing that movie. Guys, this has been Futro Hidden Movie Gems.
I started Perfect Blue. Amazing so far. Oh my gosh.
Perfect Blue.
100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Gonna finish Stranger Things, then I can rave and rant about how bad it is once I fully have it finished. So I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, so everybody, and then Kenobi, I'll have to see it just so I can be like, wow, they did a terrible job at this. So everybody, it's been Futro Hidden Movie Gems. Leave us an email, futromovies@gmail.com. Leave us a 5-star review. Check us out on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. We've got all of our videos posted on YouTube.
Spotify.
Check us out on the Apple Podcast or Spotify. Leave us a money on Patreon. This has been Futro Hidden Movie Gems signing out. Peace.
Bye.
To the danger zone.